Alright, hello, my name is Robert for the Turf Identification Project, and I found this spot of grass around the Keys Residential Hall at UF, and I already picked up a stand of grass here, and which I believe is St. Augustine, but we will go over all the features, and I'm going to take this inside where it's a bit quieter and I can show you up close and about all the features of this grass. Alright, so we're back inside, and I have a sample of the grass I found outside, and I mentioned that it was probably St. Augustine grass, and I'm still pretty sure about that, so let's look at some of the features that make it St. Augustine grass. So one of the main features about St. Augustine grass is the blade widths. St. Augustine has one of the widest blades out of any of the warm season grasses. The only one that really comes close is carpet grass, maybe. Even still, St. Augustine has very wide blades. So if you see a grass with very wide blades to them, there's a decent chance that it might be St. Augustine. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing about it is it has a folded vernation to it, and I'll try to find it. Yeah, you can kind of see there that the blades do kind of fold together rather than being rolled together. So when the blades kind of fold when they approach the stem, that is considered to be folded vernation. And while that is not unique to St. Augustine, that is one feature about it, and it just helps to narrow it down. The other thing is St. Augustine grass is purely stoloniferous. It does not have rhizomes at all. It only has stolons, which means that you can cut out or eliminate a lot of grasses just from that fact alone. Carpet grass and centipede grass also do not have rhizomes, so it's not a completely unique feature, but it is pretty rare, or enough to eliminate a lot of other grasses that it can't be. So if you only see stolons and you don't see rhizomes, then there's a decent chance it might be St. Augustine grass. Another thing about St. Augustine grass is that it does have almost no hairs on the ligules. It's either hairless or just a very, very small amount. As you can see here, you really can't see any hairs. I can't, maybe one or two, but for the most part, there is no hairs on the ligules of St. Augustine grass. So, and that's fairly unique. Most grasses, warm season grasses, tend to have a somewhat hairy ligule, but St. Augustine does not. So that's something to look out for. Probably the main feature about St. Augustine that sort of separates it from a lot of the others is try to find a good example here. Yeah. So here you can see where the stem meets the blade, that little yellow part. Basically, the stem is really wide. It gets wide, but then it gets really, really narrow at that yellow part, and then it gets wide again. That is fairly unique to St. Augustine grass. It can happen on some other grasses, like carpet grass, but not quite to the level that it does with St. Augustine grass. So if you see this, if you see that narrowing, that constricting nature where the stem meets the blade, then that is a pretty good indication that it is St. Augustine grass. And that's all those features put together kind of prove that this is indeed St. Augustine grass. And that's basically how you identify it. You get a sample of it, you look for all these features: vernation, the ligules, blade width, blade tip. Oh, did I mention the blade tip is very broad on St. Augustine grass, not narrow. So even though it may look like it's pointed, a lot of other grasses really come to a sharp point, like a pencil or something, and St. Augustine does not, so keep that in mind. But all these characteristics put together make this St. Augustine grass. So anyway, thanks for watching. That's the end of the video. Hope you enjoyed it.